Oops.
Greetings, my name's Joseph Doherty. I'm from Greensing. I'm talking today about the subject of why the Democrat Party of the United States continues to pick losers. This is a very important subject for all of us in the world for two reasons. First of all, the Democrat Party could pick the next president of the United States. And the President of the United States leads the United States' government in deciding two major things which affect everybody in the world very significantly. The first one of those things is policy on climate change. This is critical at this time. We have a President of the United States that has gone backwards on climate change. He's allowed increased drilling for fossil fuels, especially even in wildlife refuges in Alaska, and he has allowed subsidies to continue on the production of fossil fuels. He has walked away from the Paris Accord, which is trying to limit the impact of climate change on the world, limiting greenhouse gas emissions. He thinks it's all baloney. Therefore, we're way behind where we need to be. This has been a hallmark of Republican presidents' policies. George W. Bush, for example, was the same. We've really lost time on this issue, so we need America to play its part in the game. So who the Democrat Party candidate is could matter very significantly, because their policies will affect us on this subject massively. Second thing that's really important about who gets to become president of the United States is military interventionism. The United States has invaded, bombed, attacked, undermined something like 55 countries in the rest of the world since the end of the Second World War. It has, for example, undermined the democracy in Australia in 1975 by assisting the British Intelligence Service to get the Labour Party government there blocked in the Senate, the Australian Senate, which caused that government to come down. They also spent some time, that was the CIA, undermining the government in Chile in 1973, causing it to fall. And they, of course, supported jihadis in Syria in 2011, undermining the Bashar al-Assad government, which, of course, was a bad government. However, millions of people lost their livelihoods, their homes, and hundreds of thousands have been killed because America wanted to undermine a government they didn't like. America's invaded Iraq, it's bombed Libya, it's bombed Serbia, it has bombed so many countries. This is a terrible situation to allow to continue. If the presidential candidate that the Democrats nominate supports this kind of behaviour continuing, then it's a really sad day for us. At the moment, there are two candidates left in the race with any slight chance of winning. They are Joe Biden, who is a hawkish military aggressive character. He very strongly supported the Iraq invasion in 2002. And he has consistently supported action on climate change, but only weak action. His opponent is Bernie Sanders. These guys are both old, but Bernie Sanders has been around just about as long as Joe Biden. Joe Biden first got into the US Senate in 1972, so he's been in American politics on a national level for 48 years. But Bernie Sanders got into power in the House of Congress in 1990, so he's been around for 30 years himself. And Bernie Sanders has consistently opposed American military aggression. He voted against the Iraq War, for example, and he has also consistently supported strong action on climate change. He currently supports the proposed Green New Deal. This is a really fantastic policy that some members of the US Democrat Party have put forward, which would really move American policy in the right direction. So Americans face a stark choice. They've got the terrible candidate for president of Donald Trump, terrible president all round, and on the other side they've got two candidates, one of whom scores a half a point out of two for the two main things we need American presidents to do, and the other guy scores 2 out of 2, Bernie Sanders. He'd be a great president. Joe Biden, however, is massively in the lead. He's very much likely to become the nominee of the Democrat Party for president. The Democrat leadership thinks this is a good thing. They swung in behind him. They engineered other candidates to drop out of the race so as to favour Joe Biden getting through over Bernie Sanders. The main media in America also supports Joe Biden and hates Trump. In fact, one of the few things that Trump and his supporters says that's true about the political system in America is that it is biased against Republicans. CNN, NBC, CBS, the Washington Post and New York Times all oppose Republican policies and all support right-wing Democrat Party support policies. Therefore, they all support Joe Biden and all oppose Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders wants to see a different kind of political regime in America, and they don't like that. Therefore, they're swinging hard in behind Joe Biden. The Democrat Party really supports Joe Biden because he's a very right-wing character. They think that's the way to get a candidate into the White House. The stupid thing about this is that all the propaganda they've been putting out through the media, through their statements about getting the most electable candidate through, telling the public, we must have the most electable candidate to beat Trump. We must have the most electable candidate to beat Trump. Bernie Sanders is not electable, has worked. It has persuaded many people who would otherwise support Bernie to vote for Biden. Many. And it's not true at all. In all the states, the swing states, they're the ones that count, that the Democrat presidential candidate has to win or hold on to in order to get into the House, the White House. There's not much difference in the polling between Sanders or Biden, maybe 1%. Almost all of them at present time in the polls of the about 8 states that are going to decide the outcome of the election are both leaning towards Sanders and Biden. Only one of them is a 1% difference between the two. That's all. So the Democrat Party has been putting out complete bollocks about Bernie Sanders' electability. It's not Bernie Sanders' electability that really matters here. It's the electability of the candidate that they want in the White House. One who favours tax cuts for the rich billionaires who are the major donors for the Democrat Party leadership, and a candidate who supports corporate sponsorship so that the Democrat Party gets huge amounts of money to spend on advertising in the general election. Bernie Sanders is, however, supported by millions of ordinary citizens and has raised more money than any other candidate. So the Democrats don't actually need the corporate sponsorship. That's another mistake, another piece of propaganda they put out. So what's going to happen? Are the Democrats right here? The leadership, that is. I don't think they are, actually. The candidate that they've been grooming and favouring, Joe Biden, has some major problems that Donald Trump will use to his advantage, massively. First major advantage that he confers on Donald Trump is electability for Trump. In 2016, which the Democrat Party leadership ignored the lessons of, their candidate, Hillary Clinton, didn't win the popular vote in 4 crucial states that she had to win to get into the White House. They were Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. They're all populous states. The smallest one, Wisconsin, has about 7 million people, and the biggest one has about 12. Losing all those states meant that Hillary couldn't get elected. And the reason she lost was she didn't campaign there and her policies were not popular there. She favoured free trade with North America, with Canada and Mexico in the 1990s. That change to American trade arrangements meant that 4 million US manufacturing jobs went elsewhere, mainly to Mexico, 4 million of them. And a lot of them went from those 4 states. As you continue to favour those kinds of policies, such as with respect to China, and advocated even more free trade agreements, such as the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, which could have included China and Japan, and those people, manufacturing workers in those 4 states, went, oh no, we're not supporting her. Significant numbers of them voted for Trump. So the Democrat Party leadership ignored the lessons of 2016, and they are favouring a candidate who has exactly the same policies as Hillary Clinton on trade. He has exactly the same policies on a range of things, such as healthcare insurance. He favours keeping that instead of having free healthcare for all citizens. And it's quite possible that he will lose at least one, Wisconsin. He's behind in the polls there. And maybe another, or 1 or 2 of those 4 states, Ohio or even Pennsylvania. At the moment, the polls don't say that. They're very close. But wait till Trump gets campaigning. When Trump campaigned here in 2016, he turned the vote against Hillary. The Democrats were shocked by that. And Trump could do it again. He has been trying to do things to protect Americans from unfair trade practices from China, and they have noticed. The people that have, that is. Biden also has a terrible track record on other things. Voting for the Iraq War, for example. Trump has notably not been a warmonger, which is really surprising for a Republican president. He fired the cabinet minister who advocated that he attack Iran. He has that card up his sleeve too against Biden. Biden also put forward legislation in 2005 supporting credit cards companies being able to bankrupt people who owed them money. Millions of people lost out because of that. Trump can stomp all over Biden, in other words. Biden has a terrible record, and if Trump decides to highlight it and campaign hard on Biden's record, Biden could lose 1 or 2 or 3% of the votes in crucial states like Pennsylvania, like Ohio, and lose. Second major problem, Biden is not so sharp anymore. He's showing significant sign of cognitive decline. He forgets who he's talking to, he forgets which state he's campaigning in. When he was in New Hampshire, for example, he spoke for several minutes about how great it was to be in Vermont. He forgets the name of political leaders. He called the president of China Deng Xiaoping, a guy who's been dead for at least 20 years. And so on and so on. And sometimes he blithers. He'll go in the middle of an answer. And we're supposed to treat this guy as if he's a serious candidate. Trump has been mocking him already. He's going to really ride that horse hard all the way to November when the election is held. He's going to put up ads saying Biden should be in a home. He's already saying these kinds of things. And the problem for Biden is it's true. So Trump could easily outdo him on the campaign trail. He is very good at whipping up a crowd, getting enthusiasm for his candidacy. He's very good at saying, these are the things we need to do. These are the things we should not be allowing to happen. I'm your man. And getting 45% of the population to vote for him. Biden is not able to do either of those things. Therefore, he has a decent chance of losing. This is a very serious mistake on behalf of the Democrat Party. The problem with it for the rest of us is the consequences for the world of Trump getting re-elected are severe. The Democrat Party, unfortunately, is corrupt. It is funded by billionaire class donors, and that's who they answer to, not the ordinary citizen. They don't want to change significantly the kinds of things that are going on in America, such as fossil fuel industry activity, such as medical care facilities being privatised. They like it. They get money from it. And that's why they don't like someone like Bernie Sanders who says, let's stop doing that. They, by supporting Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders, rigging the election against him in fact, shot themselves in the hip in 2016. They're preparing to do the same thing now, and they deserve to go down as a result. It's just a shame they're taking the rest of us, at least partially, with them.